Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump laying out the terms of the war with Iran. That's as the Pentagon says the U.S. has only just begun to fight. The U.S. and Israel are increasing attacks on Iran, the Jewish state striking a bunker where the leftover Iranian regime is hiding. The fighting is also intensifying in Lebanon, the latest on the fast-developing war. Lawmakers reject a measure that would limit President Trump's military authority and cut short the war in Iran. A handful of Democrats break ranks to oppose the bill. The Trump administration in recent weeks has taken steps in one Latin American country after another aimed at curbing the influence and economic dominance of China. Kristi Noem is out as Secretary of Homeland Security. Remarks from Senator Markwayne Mullin, who's been tapped by President Trump to take the position. The February jobs report showing an unexpected loss of jobs. More on the numbers and reactions from National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett. Thank you for joining us today. President Trump demanding unconditional surrender from Iran. That's as the War Secretary says the U.S.'s fight is only just beginning. We now go live to NTD's Washington correspondent, Mari Otsu. Mari, good afternoon.
Hey, Don, good afternoon. That's right, and President Trump is laying out the terms of this war. He's saying that there will be no deal with Iran except, quote, unconditional surrender. And he says that after that and the selection of great and acceptable leaders, we and many of our wonderful and very brave allies and partners will work tirelessly to bring Iran back from the brink of destruction, making it, quote, economically bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. The president is also vowing that Iran will have a strong and prosperous future. And this is coming as the Pentagon says their fight in Operation Epic Fury is only just beginning. Take a look.
Iran is hoping that we cannot sustain this, which is a really bad miscalculation for the IRGC in Iran. Our commitment to our mission objectives only increases as our advantages continue to increase. We've got no shortage of munitions. Our stockpiles of defensive and offensive weapons allow us to sustain this campaign as long as we need to. Again, our munition status only increases as our advantage increases. Our capabilities, we have only just begun to fight and fight decisively.
Then if I just look back over the last 24 hours of the operation compared to where we were at start, ballistic missile attacks have decreased by 90% since day one. Drone attacks have decreased by 83% since day one. Having said this, we remain vigilant. Our strikes against the Iranian Navy have intensified.
This is coming as President Trump also tells Axios that he needs to be involved in selecting the Iranian regime's next leader, and that it can't be someone aligned with the Ayatollah's policies, that it needs to be someone who will bring peace and harmony to the region. And today, big defense contractors from Boeing, Honeywell, Lockheed Martin, RTX are all expected to meet with President Trump at the White House to talk about ramping up weapons production, especially missile interceptors. The White House saying that this meeting was previously scheduled, saying that it's not a direct response to the war in Iran. And meanwhile, the White House is also responding to 53 House Democrats voting against declaring Iran a state sponsor of terrorism last night. Take a look.
Nearly 3 years ago in 2023, every single member of the House of Representatives, with the exception of one, voted together on this resolution condemning Iran as the world's state leading sponsor of terror. And now in 2026, you have Democrats on Capitol Hill who have been so debilitated by their derangement and their hatred for the man in the Oval Office right now that they cannot even condemn the world's leading state sponsor of terror. Why? Because they are trying desperately to try to undermine President Trump's essential action that he took to protect the United States of America, to protect our bases and our troops in the Middle East, and to ultimately ensure a more safe and prosperous world, not just in the Middle East, but across the entire globe as well.
And Don, tomorrow President Trump will be heading to Doral, Florida, where he'll be meeting with 17 heads of state from 17 Latin American countries to launch what he's calling the Shield of the Americas Summit. That's aimed at countering cartels in the Western Hemisphere. Back to you.
Mari, thank you. President Trump saying today there will be no deal with Iran except unconditional surrender. Joining us now to talk about the latest in Iran is Gerard Filitti, Middle East Affairs Analyst and attorney specializing in international law. Gerard, good afternoon. So what does unconditional surrender actually mean for the regime in Iran?
Unconditional surrender means that they stop fighting, essentially. But that is done on the terms that President Trump dictates. And that goes back to what our position has been from the beginning. No nuclear weapons development, no ballistic missile development, no funding of international terrorism. These are preconditions that President Trump was explicit about. So unconditional surrender does not mean we will negotiate the terms. It means that Iran agrees, the new government of Iran agrees fundamentally to these changes.
So you laid out what it means. What are the chances in your mind that Iran will stop fighting and surrender? What's going to happen to the remaining regime personnel if they do surrender?
Well, I think it's too soon to say that Iran is going to stop fighting. They still are in this fight. I think that we need to degrade their capabilities even more, take out more of their weapon sites, and also some of their leadership potentially. I think that what we will see is a transition. I think that most people in the Islamic Republic, the regime itself, want to survive. They see that this is a futile act, that the United States and Israel have air dominance, have missile dominance, have the ability to pound them and destroy all of their assets. So ultimately, there will be a desire by the regime, whichever is in charge, to negotiate a way out. But as Donald Trump has said explicitly, there isn't a negotiation to be had until they lay down their weapons, until they stop fighting.
All right, understood. So I have a soundbite here of President Trump talking about the future of Iran at the White House. Let's take a look.
We also urge Iranian diplomats around the world to request asylum and to help us shape a new and better Iran with great potential. It's a country with great potential. There's much better future for Iran. It's now beginning. It's going to be, I think, a great future. And the United States will ensure that whoever leads the country next, Iran will not threaten America or its neighbors, Israel, anybody.
So, Gerard, the Board of Peace is already at work planning to rebuild Gaza. Now Trump wants to rebuild Iran. It sure is an ambitious plan. What would that entail, rebuilding Iran?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. When you look at the countries that have signed up to be part of that Board of Peace, clearly these are the same countries that have a very big interest in making sure that Iran is stable, democratic, and moves forward with peace and stability in the region. So I do think that a democratic transition in Iran will see the Board of Peace come in to help rebuild. What that means, let's not forget what Iran was like in 1979 before the Islamic Revolution. It was an economic powerhouse. It was easily doing trade with Europe, with Asia, with the United States. That is something that can happen again. All it takes is rebuilding some of the infrastructure, but more importantly, having people in government who are willing to set aside the biases and the hate of the Islamic Republic and be open to economic dialogue, be open to social improvements. And that is very much within reach, and that is what rebuilding Iran will look like. It's not just rebuilding infrastructure. It's rebuilding a mentality of being open to peace and stability and not to the destructive paths that we've seen from the current regime.
Now, Gerard, let me get your comments on this. Iran's foreign minister warned that it would be a disaster for the U.S. if there was a ground invasion. How are you reading this warning?
Well, look, Iran has a lot of tough talk that it's still giving. It's even for domestic consumption, putting out propaganda videos of them destroying American aircraft or American warships. None of it is true. Ultimately, I think that we will not see U.S. boots on the ground. I think we will not see Israeli boots on the ground. I think the Iranian people themselves have been urged repeatedly by President Trump to take back their country. We may see insurgencies. We may see Kurdish forces striking up a rebellion in parts of Iran and other ethnic groups as well. But ultimately, it is up to the people of Iran, if they want to take back their government, to do so. It will not be U.S. boots on the ground.
So, Gerard, we've seen a lot of support for President Trump in Middle Eastern countries and elsewhere as well. Would you say this level of support is unprecedented? What do you think about that?
It's very much unprecedented in the last 40 years of American diplomacy in the region. America is coming at this not just from a position of military strength and willingness to engage to do the right thing, but we are looking at building economic stability in the region. The path towards stability and peace is through trade, through economic betterment, through improving the lives of the people in the Middle East. And the people and governments that are allied with America see that. They see that it is in their interests to build bridges and build economic stability, not not to invest their money in wars. That is why we're seeing President Trump have such a dramatic effect on the Middle East.
So, Gerard, you said we probably won't see boots on the ground in Iran. Do you think, just finally, the U.S. is capable of completing this mission only by air?
I think in large part we are when we look at the threat to the West, the threat to the U.S. and Israel and the Middle East is largely through ballistic missiles, through cruise missiles, through drones. And once we destroy that infrastructure, and if we keep degrading Iran's military capability domestically, there's no need for boots on the ground. Look, ultimately, as in Venezuela, we really don't care the name of the person who's in charge of Iran. We just want the country to decide for itself what to do, and to do so in a way that is not threatening to the West and to the United States. We can achieve that without boots on the ground, and that's a big difference between what President Trump is doing now and what previous administrations have tried to do in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Okay, Gerard, sounds good. Thank you for speaking with us. Hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you, Don. You as well.
The Trump administration in recent weeks has taken forceful steps in one Latin American country after another aimed at curbing the influence and economic dominance of China. More news after this break. Stay with us.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan green vegetable omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. You may know me from my many years on television. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I felt this slight pressure on my chest, just slight. I thought, oh, it's nothing, it'll go away. I didn't get it. I did not get it. A few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. It felt like an elephant pressing on my chest. I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I was rushed into surgery where I received 2 stents in my arteries. Stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. I can enjoy life with my children, my grandchildren, and my friends. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, and your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special T-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did.
Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org. Become a monthly donor during February Heart Month, and your first month's gift will be matched.
Thank you.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride. There's also a significant amount of pressure.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
Watching the sun come up, that's my time. I can have a cup of coffee, and every day is a new opportunity.
That's cool. Your hand's gotten so
Yay!
Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love your mind.
The U.S. and Israel increasing attacks on Iran, the Jewish state striking a bunker where the leftover Iranian regime is hiding. The fighting is intensifying, especially in Lebanon, where Hezbollah terrorists try supporting Iran by attacking Israel. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has the latest on the fast-developing war.
Fighting in the Middle East continues intensifying. Multiple targets in Iran's capital city, Tehran, being hit, with smoke seen rising from various locations. The US releasing this video showing strikes on an Iranian drone carrier ship, with officials saying the vessel was roughly the size of a World War II aircraft carrier. America's goal is to completely destroy the Iranian Navy. Over 30 vessels are at the bottom of the ocean already. And Israel releasing this video of its strikes on Tehran. The Jewish state is launching a new wave of attacks, saying 50 warplanes struck a bunker beneath Tehran, being used by Iran's leadership.
I utterly believe that once you undermine this empire of evil emanating from Tehran, we will be able to offer venues of peace, goodwill, and prosperous future for the people of the Middle East.
The US and Israel can roam freely above Iran after gaining full control over its airspace just a few days ago. According to the Iranian Red Crescent Society, over 1,000 people are being reported dead so far. The leftover Islamic regime still trying to defend itself. Footage shows Iran intercepting Israeli missiles in night skies above Tehran. Iran also continues attacking nearby countries, with the latest strikes involving US partners Bahrain, Kuwait and others. Iran striking over a dozen countries since the fighting began less than a week ago. In Israel, meanwhile, sirens are being heard across Tel Aviv. Several residents are left slightly wounded near the city after an Iranian missile attack. No casualties are being reported, as eyewitness footage shows Israel's Iron Dome intercepting incoming Iranian attacks. And the fighting is intensifying, especially in neighboring Lebanon. Israel is striking sites used by Hezbollah terrorists, which the Iranian regime has long funded, trained and supported. The Israeli military saying it carried out 26 waves of strikes overnight. Lebanon was pulled into the war after Hezbollah started attacking Israel on Monday in support of Iran. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
And the U.S. Central Command says Iran continues to fire at civilian targets in the Gulf states. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper posting a statement moments ago. The statement says the Iranian regime fired 7 attack drones last night at civilian and residential neighborhoods in Bahrain. Bahrain is a small Gulf state and partner of the U.S. as well as a member of the Abraham Accords. He adds that Iran has attacked 12 different countries in the Middle East so far and continues to deliberately target civilians. The commander says, quote, "This is unacceptable and will not go unanswered. We will continue working with regional partners to address this threat to innocent people across the region." According to the State Department, nearly 24,000 Americans have safely returned to the United States from the Middle East. Some of them took a charter flight on a plane belonging to the New England Patriots. That flight landing in Washington, D.C. this morning. The State Department says many Americans have safely relocated to other countries. Others have departed from the Middle East but are still in transit back to the U.S. More flights are scheduled for the coming days, depending on the security situation, that is. The department is urging American citizens in need of assistance in Oman, Kuwait, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Israel to fill out a crisis intake form. Once completed, American citizens in those countries will receive information about upcoming charter flights and ground transportation options. Meanwhile, the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad reported that Iranian-backed terrorist militias could target hotels in Iraqi Kurdistan. The embassy urged American citizens to depart as soon as it is safe to leave. In a post on X, the embassy said there are no flights leaving Iraq at this time. The embassy advised U.S. citizens to consider traveling by land to enter Jordan, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. However, those border crossings may close without warning. The dignified transfer of the 6 U.S. soldiers killed in action during an Iranian drone strike is taking place tomorrow at Dover Air Force Base. The White House says President Trump will attend the transfer, and Iowa Congressman Zach Nunn says he also plans to be there. All 6 soldiers were part of the same Army Reserve Command in Des Moines, Iowa, before their deployment to Kuwait. Meanwhile, the U.S. is restoring diplomatic relations with Venezuela after 7 years. It comes as interim authorities govern Venezuela following the capture of former dictator Nicolas Maduro. Here's more.
The U.S. State Department says the move will promote stability, support economic recovery, and advance what it calls political reconciliation in Venezuela. Maduro cut diplomatic ties with the U.S. in 2019 after Washington refused to recognize him as the country's president. Venezuela's interim government says it's committed to entering a new phase of constructive dialogue grounded in what it called the sovereign equality of states. The latest U.S. official in Venezuela was Doug Burgum, Secretary of the Interior. He says the U.S. is very pleased with the direction the country's going in.
We certainly talked about a positive future for this country, and there's a number of things that are happening, again, under the current leadership that are very positive for everybody in this country. And I think you're seeing that in the laws that are being passed. They're, again, creating a framework that is going to be more peace, more stability, and more prosperity for the people of Venezuela.
Burgum said Venezuela's government is giving security assurances to 9 mining companies interested in investing in the country. Mineral areas have long been controlled by guerrilla groups and gangs. Shell Oil Company says it's entering into agreements with the Venezuelan government from offshore natural gas and onshore oil and gas opportunities.
The White House says the Trump administration will be reinforcing its Monroe Doctrine during its Shield of Americas summit this weekend to try to help Latin American countries reduce ties with China. Joining us now to talk about this is Santiago Vidal-Calvo, policy analyst at the Manhattan Institute, and we have Marcos Chatgas, editor-in-chief for the Epoch Times Brazil and Latin America correspondent for the Epoch Times USA. Okay, so good afternoon to you both. San Diego, if I may, I'll start with you today. Can you just talk to us here about the level of influence China and other adversarial nations have in Latin America?
Hey, Don, thank you so much for the invitation. So first of all, China has gone unchecked for years now in Latin America, where they have done massive investments in shady loans to many countries. They have invested in infrastructure, try to get takeovers of very key and very important interests of the United States in the region. And they have a strong armed, many leftist governments around the region to bring them over to their side and to get them away from the sphere of influence of the United States. This has happened over the last decades, and it has gone under the radar of the United States because many of these governments prefer a China that is giving them a free checkbook, a blank check, before a United States that has some conditions about prosperity in the Western Hemisphere and about the security and the interests of the United States. However, this seems to stop with the Trump administration. The Trump administration is taking a posture that China needs to be kicked out of the continent. The Monroe Doctrine renewal is the same type of theory that we're implementing today to kick out foreign regimes and foreign adversaries from our continent because it's ours. And this is a policy that the Trump administration is taking, and it's a good one.
Okay, Marcos, please, anything you'd like to add here about China's influence in Latin America?
Well, I agree with the points that are being made, but I would also like to highlight the fact that this comes as the U.S. Congress has just published a recent report. The Committee on China in the House has just published a recent report where we talk about military capabilities. So we're talking about dual-use capabilities in ports, even space. In Argentina, in the Neuquén province, in the Patagonia region, you have a space base which is directly run by the People's Liberation Army. Not even the administration has free access to it without the PLA's approval. So we're talking about a threat that, as the points, and I agree with the points that were made, they go into influence. When we talk finance, they go into influence. When we talk infrastructure, telecom, and there's also a military side to it with the dual use of military civil technology, military-civil fusion. I also think that the timing of this is very important to highlight as it comes before an expected visit by President Trump to China still this semester, perhaps in April. So all of this ties into the context of the strategic competition between the US and China, and also has a military side.
So Santiago, both of you talked about certain threats and influence that China exerts in Latin America. Can you just put into perspective for us from the U.S.'s point of view? Why does this matter? What threat does this influence pose to the U.S. interests?
Well, let me tell you that some of the biggest...
Oh, please.
I'll have Santiago go first, and then Marcos, I'll ask you.
Awesome, thank you. Sorry about that. So let me tell you that the biggest threats that China had on the continent to the United States have already been dissipated, which was Venezuela. I would say one of the main threats, both in security terms, but also in economic terms for the region. What was this representing? Venezuela was giving oil to Cuba and to adversaries across the world, like Iran and China. This has ceased after the capture of Nicolas Maduro. And this looks very grim to China now, that they have lost one of their key partners in the region. If Cuba falls too, China would also lose one of their main partners in the region. They would only be left with some of the leftist parties around other countries like Colombia or like Ecuador or like Brazil and Argentina that do not have much power anymore because they're in process of transition after a Trump administration has put a big influence in the continent, and presidents like Milei and Bukele have made it their goals to kick out a lot of these leftist parties from the continent. So there is an interest of the United States politically to align the continent politically with the United States. But second, security measures. We cannot have rampant dictators in the region that are allies of China making threats or even having security interests or problems with the United States. And this is what was happening with Venezuela and also happening with Cuba and Nicaragua. If the Trump administration is able to remove those regimes and move them into stable democratic countries, that would be the biggest blow to China in the last decade.
So, Marcos, before you respond here, Santiago brought up Cuba, right? I have a clip here of President Trump hinting at action in Cuba recently after making some comments. Let's take a look at that clip.
We also urge Iranian diplomats around the world to request asylum and to help us shape a new and better Iran with great potential. It's a country with great potential. There's much better future for Iran. It's now beginning. It's going to be, I think, a great future. And people, I want to thank all of the people that have been involved. Marco, you've been doing a fantastic job. And you've been doing a fantastic job on a place called Cuba. What's happening with Cuba is amazing. And we think that we want to finish this one first, but that will be just a question of time.
So, Marcos, in your view, what needs to happen in Cuba to align with our national security interests and to help the Cuban people? Just your overall thoughts on this.
I mean, we're talking about a regime that's very hostile to the U.S. and historically we have seen how this can be a security threat. In 1962, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis, where we went nearly into World War III over Soviet missiles that were put in Cuba. The geographical position of Cuba is once again being weaponized, as we can see from reports in recent years of Chinese influence. And we're talking space capabilities and other asymmetrical warfare, unconventional warfare capabilities being deployed to Cuba on a regime that has before been tied also with Russia and to a very lesser degree to Iran, which was mainly acting in and around Venezuela. So it also has this point to it, but it has also a symbolic aspect. When we talk about the hardest communist guerrilla, the hardest cartels in the region, when we talk about the FARC in Colombia and the ELN in Colombia, when we talk about Varpalmares, MR8 in Brazil in the past century, when we talk about cartels and guerrillas all around the region, most of them have been to a point inspired, trained, or backed by Cuba in one way or another. So the sort of zeitgeist shift, the shift in the spirit of the times that we're discussing, is especially symbolic when we talk about Cuba. And right now, the regime seems to be, in fact, in their last breath. Of course, it might be soon to say in a way, but we just had massive blackouts with 7 million people with no access to electricity in the past few days. So this also bespeaks of the moment we're seeing. And just to add to the point that Santiago was making, I think he's completely right. I would also add the economic dimension. When we talk about lithium in Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina, which is key for technologies like electric cars and resources around the region that can be useful, like Brazil having the second biggest reserves of rare earths, which have been in the news a lot lately.
So, Santiago, you can add something more if you would like, but I want to actually circle back to China. There's one thing I wanted to ask you specifically, and that is about China's ports that it has built in some of these Latin American countries. Could they have, dual use capabilities? For example, could it theoretically be used for military purposes?
Well, let me tell you something. China does nothing out of benevolence and charity. And I think this is what we're seeing across the continent. The only reason why China is involved in Latin America is because they have an interest to have some sort of investment there that is going to advance their purpose here in Latin America. And what is their purpose? To diminish the influence of the United States. That is the only purpose that China is having. The second purpose that you can try to bring is make money, but everybody wants to make money in this world, and China has obviously different ulterior motives. And this is the issue, is that we have not seen in Latin America the investment from China like we saw it in other places around the world. We saw the Belt and Road Initiative being implemented in Africa, in Asia, in the Middle East. why not see it also in Latin America as an extension of the Belt and Road Initiative? And this has been this case over the last decades. China has invested in ports for their infrastructure, for their security interests. If they control what the ports of Latin America, they control the trade of Latin America. And we saw this with the ruling and with the influence that had the Panama Canal on the last couple of months. This has been the influence that China has had. If we continue to allow China, not only ports, but communication, China has invested billions of dollars in communication infrastructure in Latin America, spaceport. I 100% agree with Marcos here on what he's saying with the security interests of China in the region. They have seen Latin America as an adversary of the United States, and Cuba has been a huge influence to implement those goals from China around the continent, because they both have the same goals, to take the United States down. So if we have two big adversaries of the United States trying to do exactly the same thing, then it's only the most appropriate method for the United States to do the country, to try to bring them down in the continent and bring allies closer to ours.
So Marcos, give us your concerns on these specific items, whether we're talking about the ports, the infrastructure investments, debt trap practices. Talk to us about your concerns on these, and what leverage does the U.S. have to convince these Latin American countries to shift their alliance closer to the U.S.?
I mean, the leverage has been increasing. For instance, of course, the attacks on the Caribbean on the narco boats have a big impression. When we're talking about the shift in the international environment, we're talking about the traditional way international relations have been conducted with the United Nations or other organizations being middlemen, shifting essentially to what it used to be before World War II. We're talking about economic pressure, military pressure, and this kind of diplomacy where it's mostly about bilateral relations and even personal relations between the heads of both countries. This shift has allowed the Trump administration to be more assertive and increase its leverage. And this is, I see, a much needed shift when we talk about the geopolitics of the region. So let me expand a little bit on the ports. When we talk about the Shanghai port in Peru, for instance, this is now run by a company called Costco Shipping. There's a lawsuit going on. I won't go into details, but this is now run by a company called Costco Shipping, which is considered part of the Chinese military apparatus by the United States of America. We now have a data cable in Chile, which could essentially have the data of Latin American countries going straight to Hong Kong under the CCP's influence. All of this goes through 2017 cybersecurity law in China, then 2021 anti-espionage law, and other laws put in by the regime, which breach data safety and also allows the Chinese Communist Party to exert pressure by essentially accessing any data they have on any of those countries when you're talking about data cables, right? It goes beyond just the possibility of conventional warfare. So it's not that the ports could be used by a Chinese aircraft carrier to attack the US. That's a farther away possibility, despite theoretically possible. It's about the fact that if a war breaks in the Strait of Taiwan, in the Taiwan Strait, we would be talking about a scenario where the Chinese could pressure Latin American countries into continuing to export iron ore, into continuing to export food, like Brazil, which is one of the biggest food suppliers to China. We could see that supply chains and diplomatic legitimacy could be provided by countries nearby the United States. So when we talk about the war scenario, I think that's the kind of thing that's into discussion. Now, regarding leverage, like I said, I think it's about bilateral diplomacy, personal relations from Trump with leaders in the region. I think it's also about military and economic pressure, which has been hugely leveraged throughout his first year in the second administration. Without going into too much detail, I think this gives the gist of it.
Okay, Santiago, two things. If there's anything you'd like to respond to from what Marco said, you can. And another thing is I wanted to ask you about Iran. You know, with everything that's happening right now with Operation Epic Fury, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about what is Iran's influence in Latin America?
Well, first, just to close what Marcos was saying, I think he's 100% right with what he's saying about China. And the best thing that the United States could do right now is double down on their influence in the continent, try to buy off a lot of these loans from China and try to offer countries currency swaps or currency deals that they could allow these countries to buy off the loans from China and change them to the United States. I think many of these countries would prefer to have their loans under the United States before China, where the influence of the United States can be controlled and China loses a leverage on the continent. That can be one of the things that the United States could be doing, and they have both the money and the capability and the interest to do this. But to go in Iran specifically, Iran has had many partners around the region that has helped them advance their interests. But one of the main ones was Venezuela with Hezbollah. Hezbollah had a huge presence in Venezuela because Venezuela was treated as a safe haven for terrorism during the Maduro regime and before in the Chavez regime as well. We have pictures of Chavez with the previous president of Iran. They were good buddies. And even the president of Iran, the former president of Iran, used to go to the, funeral of Chavez. That was, 2 days ago, yesterday, we were celebrating almost 12 years of the death of Chavez. This is very important relationship for the region. And after Maduro's capture, Iran's influence in the continent has greatly been reduced. People underestimate how much of an influence Venezuela and Iran had in the relationship around the continent. Hezbollah has set up security and interest for Iran in Venezuela to spy on the United States, even so much that there are reports from Congress and also from Venezuela that Venezuela gave 10,000 fake Venezuelan passports to Iranian nationals to cross the border here illegally in the United States and enter. Hezbollah officials that enter under Venezuelan fake passports. This happened under the last years, and it happened under the watch of the United States, and we need to fix this really quickly. And one of the main steps was to remove Maduro from power.
Okay, Marcos, I'll end with you today. Your final thoughts on Iran's influence in Latin America.
So just to expand on what Santiago was saying, the passport scheme in Venezuela was so big that in 2007, they even planned a terrorist attack on JFK Airport in New York coming from Guyana and Venezuela, which was thwarted last minute by the FBI. We're talking about narco cartels throughout the region, trading in arms and drugs with Hezbollah, including nearby where I'm at right now in the Argentina-Paraguay-Brazil border in Foz do Iguaçu. This is the kind of thing which has created also an influx in the last administration of people in the US terror watch list throughout the southern border. And you see the menace of this rogue terrorist regime expanding throughout the US's neighbors and into the United States. In a matter of about 2 months, this administration has debunked this scheme to the point where its main leader in the region, Nicolás Maduro, is in jail, and its main leader in the Middle East, Ali Khamenei, is dead. We see a reversal of the US's adversaries' influence in the region, going from Iran to China, even to Moscow to an extent, because Venezuela was also a forward operating base for Russian influence in the region. This all comes not only before the summit we have on Saturday, but before President Trump's visit to Beijing in April or sometime in the first semester of this year. I think the message is very clear to the US adversaries, and when Donald Trump steps into China in the near future, he'll have the leverage of what has happened close to home in the past 2 or 3 months.
Okay, well, very profound conversation today, coming as no surprise from two incredible analysts. But thank you both for speaking with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The February jobs report showing an unexpected job loss. More on the numbers and reactions from National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett. And Kristi Noem is out as Secretary of Homeland Security. Remarks from Senator Markwayne Mullin, who's been tapped by President Trump to take the position. More news after this break.
I trod on my glasses yesterday, and I had to pay up front for a new pair that I can't even pick up for another 10 days. So I looked for another way, and I found Select Specs. I ordered online. My new glasses just arrived this morning, and I can pay over the next few weeks. This is the way to buy glasses.
See now, pay later with Select Specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options only at selectspecs.com.
For the first time ever, we're bringing you MyPillow mattresses and mattress toppers for as low as $99.98. Remember, sleep's all about temperature and pressure points. Whatever sleep needs you have, we have the right technology for you. Like our MyPillow mattress topper, our queen size has over 10,000 individual comfort supports to help relieve your pressure points. And how about our 3-inch Hybrid Plus mattress topper? It's infused with copper and silver to help your body get the restorative sleep it needs. And our MyPillow and Case Coil mattresses, I personally helped develop these mattresses to make sure they have everything needed to give us great sleep. Plus, they're made right here in the USA, and they ship right to your front door absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to get MyPillow mattresses and toppers for as low as $99.98 and free shipping.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl remains.
A surprising jobs report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The U.S. economy unexpectedly lost jobs last month, while the unemployment rate edged up. Here's more.
New government data shows jobs dropped by 92,000 in February. This comes after January's better-than-expected performance of 126,000 new jobs. The unemployment rate edged up to 4.4% from 4.3%. Economists forecast nearly 60,000 new jobs and a jobless rate holding steady at 4.3%. Here's White House National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett reacting to the report on CNBC this morning.
There have been so many strong indicators this month that it's something of a surprise, but there's some weather, there are strikes on the West Coast, and I think that we also have this birth-death model, a change in the procedure at the BLS. And so I think what we need to start doing with these jobs numbers, at least on the payroll side, is take the average over a few months. And if you take the average over a few months, we had a surprisingly positive one last month and a surprisingly negative one this one. But on average, it's about what we expect to be seeing.
Industries that gained jobs include social assistance and hospitals. Industries hit hard by job losses include healthcare, information services, manufacturing, transportation, warehouse, and federal employment. Hassett is projecting optimism, saying, as you heard, the U.S. economy remains strong, and saying job creation is on a net positive, and also that he expects the GDP to grow by 4% this year, saying a fast-moving economy will support job finding.
A major change in the Trump administration. Secretary Kristi Noem is set to leave the Department of Homeland Security, and Trump's pick to replace her is Senator Markwayne Mullin. Here's that story.
A shakeup at the Department of Homeland Security. President Trump says he's replacing Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem with Markwayne Mullin, a senator from Oklahoma. Mullin spoke to reporters at the Capitol Thursday following the announcement.
I've got to be honest with you, I wasn't expecting the call today, but super excited.
He said he was going to speak to Noem and praise her for her work while also outlining his plan going forward.
And we're going to get Department of Homeland Security making sure that we stay focused on protecting the homeland. And no matter if you support me, you don't support me, I'm going to be laser focused on getting that done.
In a post on Truth Social Thursday, the president said Noem will move to become special envoy for the Shield of the Americas, the Trump administration's new security initiative in the Western Hemisphere. Trump thanked Noem for her service, saying she achieved numerous and spectacular results as secretary. In a press release, the Department of Homeland Security said under Noem's leadership, the U.S. recorded its lowest border crossing totals in history. It also made note of drug seizures made during Noem's tenure, saying Customs and Border Protection seized more than 600,000 pounds of illicit drugs nationwide over the past year. The department says Noem oversaw the deportation of more than 3 million illegal immigrants, most of which it says were self-deportations. It also says ICE and CBP arrested hundreds of thousands of criminal illegal immigrants in cities nationwide. In a post on X, Noem thanked Trump for her new role as special envoy for the Shield of the Americas. She says she's looking forward to working with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth praised Noem's leadership at the DHS.
We all serve at the pleasure of the president. I'm sure Mark Wayne Mullen will do a fantastic job. He's been a friend of mine for a long time. But Christie did a great job setting us up for success. So I don't have any concerns about whether or not the homeland will be covered down on.
Rubio says Noem will be a tremendous asset to their team. Noem's departure comes amid mounting criticism over her leadership, including from some Republican lawmakers. And the DHS is at the center of a funding battle in Congress over immigration enforcement and has been shut down for 21 days. Mullen will replace Noem on March 31st, pending Senate confirmation.
The House of Representatives has voted and the Department of Homeland Security funding bill has been cleared by the chamber. Republicans warn the shutdown threatens key security agencies, while Democrats say the bill lacks oversight for immigration enforcement. NTD's Chris Baum has details.
The House has voted, and the Department of Homeland Security funding bill has passed 221 to 209, with 4 Democrats joining all Republicans. Republicans say the shutdown is putting critical security agencies at risk. Democrats say the bill lacks needed oversight of immigration enforcement. Here's a look at the debate.
Now, especially with conflict in the Middle East, is not the time to block funding for the Department of Homeland Security. We could be under attack by Iran.
Republicans say the DHS funding bill isn't about ICE or CBP, which already received $75 billion from the One Big Beautiful Bill.
ICE is already funded for years. CBP is already funded for years. But the funding that comes from that bill funds our Coast Guard, our TSA, our cybersecurity professionals.
Some lawmakers say the fight over DHS funding has become political, leaving frontline personnel and their families in uncertainty.
Right now, we're playing politics with something like Department of Homeland Security funding. I don't need my active duty members to be worried about the safety and security of their families that they've left here in the homeland.
When asked about what reforms she would support from Democrats, Congresswoman Lisa McClain said,
"Is the party of masks, right, all of a sudden wants to unmask all the ICE agents. Just look at the contradictions. You should ask yourself why we're in this situation to begin with. If 20 million people didn't cross our borders, we wouldn't be having this situation and we wouldn't be having."
One of the demands that's been communicated was that they wanted ICE to cease operations or to not operate within proximity of voting locations. What does that tell you?
Democrats and Republicans debating a DHS funding bill in the Senate, the measure failing to reach 60 votes needed for cloture, leaving lawmakers at an impasse over oversight of immigration enforcement.
Democrats do want to ensure that TSA and CISA and FEMA and other important agencies are funded. We will not cut a blank check funding without reforms for ICE and Border Patrol.
Democrats claim they are no longer for open borders. Their proposal completely defunds the Customs and Border Protection. HSI is responsible for capturing these men, child pornographers, child predators, sex traffickers, drug traffickers.
Reporting from Washington, D.C., Chris Bob, NTD News.
Congressman Tony Gonzalez of Texas announces he will not seek re-election. The move comes after GOP leaders urged him to abandon his bid that followed revelations of an affair with a former aide who died by suicide. Gonzalez says he will continue serving the remainder of his term. House Republican leadership said Gonzalez was asked to withdraw amid very serious allegations and an ongoing House Ethics Committee investigation into his conduct. The Navy veteran and 3-term lawmaker admitted to a lapse in judgment, but he said he had no contact with the aide since June 2024 and had nothing to do with her tragic death. He says he has reconciled with his wife and pledged to cooperate with the ethics inquiry. Lawmakers reject a measure that would limit President Trump's military authority and cut short the war in Iran. A handful of Democrats break ranks to oppose the bill. More stories after this. Stay with us.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
First time that I went to see him, a lot of stuff came into my mind because I wasn't prepared at all. I know the first 3 months of his life were really important, and I wanted to be there all the time for him. First time he was like, "Daddy, Daddy." That was one of his first words. He grew up so quick. He just surprised me every day. He's really smart. I really think he can be an astronaut, president. But I'm gonna support him for wherever he wants to be. Whether he want to be a photographer, musician, whatever. As a father, I guess you don't focus on you. I put himself first. That's what a dad does.
Democrats on Capitol Hill this week failing to cut short military operations in Iran, both chambers rejecting a war powers resolution that Republicans described as dangerous. NTD's Melina Weisskopf reports.
On the sixth day into President Trump's Operation Epic Fury, lawmakers rejected a measure from Democrats that would have limited ongoing military operations in Iran.
This needs to continue. It would have been a very dangerous gambit to take the commander-in-chief's ability away to complete this mission. It would have been a very serious misstep by Congress, and I'm grateful that that resolution failed.
Two Republicans, Thomas Massie and Warren Davidson, joined with most Democrats to stop the operation. Democrats have expressed concerns about the operation evolving into an endless war, a notion the Pentagon has repeatedly rejected.
The mission of Operation Epic Fury is laser-focused. Destroy Iranian offensive missiles, destroy Iranian missile production, destroy their navy and other security infrastructure, and they will never have nuclear weapons.
Why? Because they have proven that they are an imminent threat and they will use it every single chance that they get.
4 Democrats joined with Republicans to shoot down the measure, one of them emphasizing that pulling troops out mid-operation is not good policy.
To me, this was a no-brainer. They had a window of opportunity to take out very specific military assets in order to defang the Iranian regime. We will be safer.
He was joined by Congressman Jared Golden, Henry Cuellar, Juan Vargas, and John Fetterman in the Senate, being the few Democrats that support the president's action in Iran. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Oil prices are surging as the conflict in the Middle East disrupts global energy supplies. Crude is on track for its strongest weekly gain since 2020 during the COVID pandemic. Here's more on that.
Brent crude jumping nearly 22% this week, with U.S. benchmark West Texas Intermediate climbing close to 27%. The rally began after the United States and Israel launched strikes on Iran. Tehran then halted tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, a critical route that carries about 1/5 of the world's daily oil supply. President Trump says rising gas prices are not his main concern, adding that the military operation remains his top priority. And the International Energy Agency today is advising against looking to Russia for gas supplies.
Given the bitter experience Europeans had with Russia, given the very fact that there will be a lot of LNG anyways coming to markets, and the gas markets turning from the markets of sellers to buyers, I think to look Russia as an alternative option for getting gas will be economically and, in my view, politically wrong.
The EU is under mounting pressure from industries and governments to step in to try to curb high energy prices. Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has promised to draw up options for EU leaders to consider at a summit later this month.
Amid rising tensions with Iran, the Trump administration is launching a $20 billion maritime reinsurance plan aimed at protecting shipping in the Gulf and keeping energy flowing through the Strait of Hormuz. More news after this break. Stay with us.
I'm Amy Grant, and I want to talk to you from my heart about the heart. I would have been the last person on the list to say this woman has a problem with her heart. So no, there was nothing about my life that said, you have a ticking time bomb in your chest. But I did. I wound up in the office of a cardiologist because I was there with my husband. And at the tail end of that, the cardiologist looked at me and said, I want to see you. No one was more surprised than I was to learn I was living with a rare heart condition. He said, Amy, this condition, you'll be fine, and then catastrophic. A few months later, I had open heart surgery that saved my life. And I owe it to the research and life-saving medical breakthroughs developed by the American Heart Association. That's why I'm asking you to join me and become a monthly donor to the American Heart Association. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. If this could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, but your support can save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt you can wear to show you're part of a community of monthly donors working to help save more lives like mine. I'm grateful for the American Heart Association. Their research gave me more time to do the things I love with the people I love. So listen to your heart. I'm here today because I did. Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now to become a monthly donor and help save even more lives. Thank you.
My name's Stacy. I'm 57, and I was adopted in 2020.
We were adopted in 2019.
And we were adopted in 2021.
We had a house, and it sounds crazy, but it wasn't a home. The one thing that Jake and Emma brought is it became a home.
When I met Dakota, he had just turned 14.
You weren't there for the first this and the first that. I missed the first words, but we got a lot of other firsts.
Watching her say, oh my God, I cannot believe I got my license. And she's like, I passed. And I'm like, girl.
See them grow. It is.
They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
You and you. Kids in the middle.
What I thought was a complete life was nowhere near complete, but it is now.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Mott. President Trump laying out the terms of the war with Iran. That's as the Pentagon says the U.S. has only just begun to fight. The U.S. and Israel are increasing attacks on Iran, the Jewish state striking a bunker where the leftover Iranian regime is hiding. The fighting is also intensifying in Lebanon, and Iran keeps firing attack drones at Gulf states, the latest on the fast-developing war.